Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. You heard that right. That was introduction music to the episode, to the program. I hope that we can get this cleared with all the copyright stuff. So maybe you heard it, I guess. Maybe you didn't. But this is what we're going to be running with. It's a big moment for the show, and we hope it just gets you pumped up and excited to listen to us talk about some football.
It's going to be a huge turning point for the pod. Now we are official, so it's an awesome thing. And if you're from Wisconsin, then you'll really recognize the type of music that it is. A great homage to the state.
Yeah, we got some polka music going. It almost sounds vaguely German to me too. There's just so much German influence in this part of the state, at least, and the state as a whole. So let's get to talking about some matches now. Today's Sunday, December 22nd, as we record this. Bayern Munich had a cracking 5-1 victory over RB Leipzig in the Bundesliga, and Chelsea had a hard-fought but ultimately unsuccessful, I guess, or maybe unsatisfying 0-0 draw against Everton today.
They sure did, and they also played Thursday in the Conference League, of course. They did beat Shamrock Rovers in their sixth and final group stage match in the Conference League. I think it was 5-1, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it was 5-1. So two 5-1 matches, and that almost feels like ancient history with the speed that the footballing world moves at. But we'll start with Bayern Munich here, beating Leipzig, as I said, 5-1 in the Bundesliga. Their last match before the winter pause here. Bayern will resume again January 11th against Gladbach, but it was a massive match for Bayern. It was a match that they needed to win, in my opinion, coming off of an abysmal showing against Mainz. They got a couple players back, Harry Kane and Alphonso Davies, so that certainly helped things out. But, it was kind of just one of those prove-it matches for Vincent Kompany and the boys. Going into this winter break, it was important to get that win.
Yeah, it was a match I was super excited to watch and see on a Friday afternoon while working from home, and Bayern certainly didn't let me down as they pretty much dominated the entire match. And watching this match, Leipzig showed that they, to me, are nothing in the consideration of the Bundesliga title. They might be competing for a European spot, but if they sniff the title, it's only because other teams just let them come close.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think that Marco Reus is on the hot seat right now, the hottest of hot seats, to be totally fair. There's a good chance that he might not be the coach anymore for Leipzig after what was, a completely embarrassing start to the year in the Champions League. They've done all right in the Bundesliga, but they're kind of teetering off here at the moment, so we'll see how things look for him going forward. But it's a little bit unfortunate. I think he's a decent coach. I just think it must be so hard to coach that team with players constantly going in and going out with their model of just kind of trying to sell players and make as much money as possible.
Yeah, they're almost kind of like a Brighton in the Prem, where that's their main goal, is to develop some players and then sell them. And I get that's your model, and when you're not this top team that's just making money hand over fist in your normal sales and being a top team in the world, I get that. But like you said, it's tough to maintain a ton of success. Although for them, being on the fringe of those European spots and maybe having a chance at a title is really what you're looking for. So can you be disappointed being fourth right now? I don't know. To me, that might be where they want to be.
Yeah, I think it's a fine start for the Bundesliga. I just think they have higher ambitions in the Champions League, and I don't know how much you followed that, but they look god-awful in the Champions League. They're one of the worst teams. I don't think they've won a match. They maybe have not even drawn a match. I'd have to pull up the table, but yeah, so anyways, let's just get back to this match here and start to go over things. First of all, I think I should mention that there was a super unfortunate event that occurred, attack in the Christmas market in Magdeburg, Germany, that happened during the match. Multiple people killed. While, football is supposed to be a uniting force and something that can kind of take your mind off of other things, I think it's important just to mention that. And obviously, all of our thoughts are with the those people and some events just overshadow the beautiful game.
Yeah, always unfortunate to see these events unfold. In Wisconsin, we just had one the other day. It was a terrible incident. So these things, unfortunately, do happen. Evil exists, and we're blessed to have a beautiful game that can distract us from that at times.
Yeah, so let's start off by going through the lineup for Bayern Munich. We did see Daniel Peretz in between the sticks as Neuer is nursing those broken ribs, or rib, I guess. I don't know for sure. But yeah, Sven is kind of back with the team, but not really playing with his incident, whatever's going on with him off the field. Bayern's been extremely vague about it. Like I said, we saw Alphonso Davies back in the lineup at left back. Awesome match from him. He is so vital to this team, and I'm so glad that he's back. Min-Jae Kim and Diet Upamecano were the center backs. Konrad Laimer was the right back. Great match for Laimer. He's had a string of very nice matches here. And incidentally, what a week, or a couple weeks for the man. His wife just gave birth the other day, so he's a new father, and scored, I think, his first Bundesliga goal. Coming right off that, he was not with the team. He was injured, then he was practicing, and then he went to be with his wife as she, gave birth to their first child. So he kind of, sprinted away from the hospital and got back with the team right in time for the match. Wasn't sure if he was going to play, but good thing he did. Kimmich and Goretzka were the midfield. A little bit of a surprise there, at least to me. Didn't think Goretzka was going to play, but I think it's maybe a good decision. Pavlovic hasn't looked like himself since he's been back from injury. He clearly, I don't think, has been as physical, and I think it was a mistake to bring him back so early from his collarbone injury. Now, that's not me going against what Bayern's doctors have to say, of course. They know much better than I do, but I just think, at least mentally, he hasn't been quite the same. The attacking setup was Michael Olise on the right wing, Jamal Musiala at the 10, Leroy Sane at the left wing, and Harry Kane back in the lineup, and man, that attack was blessed for it. So that's how Bayern lined up to start the match.
Yeah, no crazy surprises when I saw the lineup. I mean, I wasn't sure about Kane, if he was going to start or not, but yeah, just a note on Pavlovic there, and it's not that surprising to me either, because I had talked about that mental part of it being the most important if he's going to be up for going into these big duels that you need so many times in the midfield, especially with the type of injury he had. So hopefully he can kind of get that side of things right, get back into peak physical form. He's pretty young, so I'm sure his body will adjust, and he'll be fine in the coming days.
Yeah, so now as the match started, you don't have to look very far, or you didn't have to watch the match very long to see some action, because right around maybe the 30th, 40th second of the match starting, Bayern Munich scored a goal. And it was kind of off of a steal. Their press was working well, but it ended up with Michael Olise slotting in a perfect pass to Jamal Musiala, who just put the ball right in the back of the net, and Bayern was firing right away. I jumped up off of the couch. I think I scared the cat a little bit on that one.
Yeah, and a minute in, as you said, less than a minute in, and for the next minute following that goal, I'm thinking, jeez, if you're Leipzig here, that's the last possible thing that you want, is an immediate Bayern goal, especially when you're playing in their home. So ideal start for them.
Well, we certainly came back down to earth a few minutes after that, because in what was, I think, even before the second minute, maybe credited as the second minute, Leipzig scored a goal as well. Sesko got that goal. I know you're scouting him over for Chelsea, but it was really off of just a boneheaded mistake by Kim Min-jae. I don't even know where to start. You just got to watch this, but I try not to harp on individual players too much, because I don't think that's very helpful, but this is the kind of mistake that Kim has just made time in and time out, and really worries me, because against the top teams in the world in the Champions League, it's not going to fly. And this brought me right back to the Champions League match where he was starting for an injured Matthijs de Ligt last year, and did the exact same thing against Vinny, who obviously made him pay. And that was a flashback that I didn't want to have, but yeah, he basically ran around the offense, Sesko in this case, and Vinny in the case of Madrid, way too aggressively. And then once he realized he ran past him for no reason, kind of tried to wrap his arms around him and tried to pull him back, but at that point he was just gone and in for a relatively easy, relatively open goal. Peretz didn't really do anything. I actually thought his reaction was a little bit late anyways, but that goal was mostly on Kim.
Yeah, not the best defending, and really just good play by, it was Openda and Sesko, right? So, credit to them. Even though Bayern might have made defensive mistakes, you still got to put yourselves in great positions and score that goal. And Sesko, I believe, with his off foot, so good to see for him to score a goal. It's a guy that I've kind of had my eye on, as you mentioned, and haven't been insanely impressed with the things that he's done, mostly on international duty when I've seen him for Slovenia, but I think he's having a solid season for the most part with Leipzig. An intriguing prospect, albeit I think still raw at this point. So, yeah, great bounce back for this Red Bull team. I keep calling them Bulls just because it's kind of easy and fun, a little bit of a dig at them, but they're probably thinking, okay, we're back in this at this point.
Yeah, totally. And I went for a roller coaster of emotions there. I went from, like I said, leaping off the couch, frightening the cat, to head in the hands, what's going on here? Sesko and Openda both are having good seasons for Leipzig. They probably both have around 14, 15, maybe 13 goal contributions this year so far, so pretty good. That's just off the dome. Maybe you can correct me if I'm way off on the mark for that one. But, after that, Bayern clearly was looking to establish themselves and dominate the match, and that's kind of what happened. The 25th minute, we saw the breakthrough happen with Konrad Laimer, new father, 3-lung Laimer, scoring that goal. Just another rocketing goal by Laimer, kind of a little give and go like me and you practice on the pitch there. It was an awesome moment. And yeah, Laimer, I always talk about how much energy he brings, but he shot that with so much pace, just like his Champions League goal the other day. But yeah, 100-mile-per-hour bullet in the back of the net.
Brilliant goal, and it had been coming the way Bayern were playing, and I actually was going back through my texts here because I did remember you saying something leading up to this goal where, at this point you were saying they dominate and then can't put their chances away. So an unlikely hero in Laimer steps up and says, okay, maybe Moose isn't hitting a chance. He scored the early one, but then I think had a chance and missed. So Laimer steps right up, and that's huge to get contributions from unlikelier guys.
Yeah, and like you said, at this point in the match, you're kind of wondering, is this going to be like what we've seen so many times where Bayern dominates the match and just has little to sometimes nothing to show for it? You can think of numerous matches, Leverkusen both times, honestly, Frankfurt, Villa, multiple matches this year where they kind of have done that, and you weren't sure which way, I guess, things were going to fall in this one. And then that with the combination of Kim's mistake leaves some questions open because the defense just worries me, especially with a guy like Peretz in between the sticks right now. He is clearly not confident. Not a dig on him. I just don't think he's ready yet for Bayern Munich. He has made some poor passes, some poor decisions, but it's mostly on those center backs who are liable to make mistakes. With Upamecano, it seems to be more of the case where it's an unnecessary challenge. With Kim, it's just like bad positioning, over-aggression, way more unnecessary. But I think they're just worn into the ground. They play 90 minutes every match, it seems like. Tuchel certainly did that, and company is seemingly doing that now. So hopefully things, going forward remain relatively solid, and maybe we can get another backup, or company will start to trust Dyer a little bit more. But yeah, we did see the third goal of the match come in the 36th minute. This was my moment of the match by Kimmich, who found himself with a lot of space, but far outside the box, and he just took his time and in my mind, I don't know if he actually was thinking this, but kind of looked around and was like, well, I guess I'll just take this myself, and puts in a banger of a shot. I thought the keeper could have done a little bit better on this one, but he probably wasn't expecting the shot either. Kimmich was so far outside the box.
Yeah, I don't know if he was expecting a shot moving the way that it did. You probably need to do a better job protecting that post to his left if you're the keeper, but ultimately it's a great strike, and even if the keeper thinks he should have saved it, it's a phenomenal strike from Kimmich there.
Yeah, so at that point, Bayern is putting away their chances. It just seems like the way that they play with the talent that they have, and when their attack is flowing, in my mind, courtesy of Harry Kane for this one. He didn't get on the score sheet at all, but I think he had an outstanding match. I think it was so clear as compared to, say, the Mainz match, or even maybe Heidenheim, or look at a couple of the other matches without Kane. Dortmund, for example, how the attack functions with Kane versus how they don't. And everybody looks at Kane and thinks, yeah, he's a great player. He scores the most goals in the world, it seems like. Oftentimes, goals and assists, he's always up there. But what really sets him apart for me is the way that he contributes to an attack, the creativity he has in the build-up, in link-up play. I mean, the attack is just lost, it seems, without him at times. And, man, I can't be happy enough to have him back.
Yeah, and even if Kane's not doing anything, he's doing something. His status as the most important, best, however you want to say it, player on Bayern means that defenders are going to be drawn to him at all times. So that gives chances for other players, his teammates, and he's not on the score sheet in this match, but by him allowing his teammates to then have more space, I think that's also a huge component of his game.
Agreed, and I think it's just a little something I need to say, because I don't know how many times I saw the media talk about this when Kane was out. Is Bayern too dependent on Jamal Musiala? I'm not digging on Musiala. Obviously one of my favorite players in the world. Obviously a great player, playing like one of the best players in the world this season. But it's just so disrespectful to Kane. I don't know. It's like he's invisible to most of the media in the world. So for me, it's just something I want to and feel like I need to say, how important he is and how much he needs to be respected when he's really not. But yeah, we went into halftime up 3-1, feeling pretty good at that point. Like I said, I think Kimmich's goal was the moment of the match. You called it the dagger, and it's really hard to dispute with how better Bayern was playing than Leipzig at this point. Pavlovic did come in the 69th minute. Like I said, he hasn't seemed like himself since coming back from injury. And then in the 75th minute, Leroy Sane got his goal, assisted by Alphonso Davies. Great by Alphonso Davies, another player that I think Bayern needs back in the lineup, back healthy. Davies found himself in some space and made a nice run and a really nice ball to Sane, who scored a great goal. And Sane is somebody who absolutely needed a goal this game. He got one last week, but this one was the one that he really needed.
Yeah, I thought Davies had been playing phenomenal all day. Vintage game from him, his speed, athleticism, ability that he has. It's rare to have an amazing, dependable left back, and I understand he's inconsistent at times, but when he's in top form, he's one of the best left backs in the world, without a doubt, in my mind. And he really held down that entire side of the pitch and was one of the reasons that Bayern was so dominant, in my opinion.
Completely agree with you. And the other thing to mention, too, about Davies' game, obviously he contributes to the offense. He inverts so far up, but he saves the day on defense this year, at least, more times than I ever expected, with these, in my mind, horrible positioning decisions by Kim. A lot of times it's up to Davies to use his speed to get back there and to make a clearance or to just muddy things up in the box, because Kim is running back after realizing he was so far out of position and there's an open run from the opponent. So I really have to give Davies a ton of credit. I mean, what a turnaround from last year, where it looked like he didn't care half the time, where it looked like he wasn't trying. This year, he looks like one of the most important players on the team. And I went from, thinking he was out the door, closing my mind off to the idea of him returning, to now me basically being on my hands and knees begging him to sign an extension for Bayern. And speaking of extensions, Sane, like I said, that goal, so important for him. He's basically playing for his job. It sounds like Bayern is really reluctant right now to extend his contract, and he wants to stay in Bayern. He's made that very clear. So we'll see what happens in this winter pause. I think a lot of these discussions, Musiala, Sane, Davies, Kimmich, I think a lot of these contract discussions are going to ramp up over the winter break. So maybe we'll do a little bit of an episode over break and talk more in detail about those, because there's a lot to say there. But yeah, I'm happy with Sane's goal. I think he plays so much better on the left wing, and because of all the injuries that we have and inconsistent play from Coman and Gnabry, Sane is the man for the left wing right now. So good for him. And we did see a final goal come in the 79th minute. Alphonso Davies got a goal assisted by Kimmich. Beautiful ball by Kimmich into the box, and Davies was there to put his head on the ball and put things away. So just really the icing on the cake there, the cherry on top of an awesome match. And yeah, that was really it. We saw a few more subs who weren't very impactful. Dyer, Tell, Guerrero, Muller, they all came on within the last dying minutes of the match. But shout out to Dyer. I thought he did nice.
Yeah, I think after that Davies goal, I basically kind of turned it off in my mind. And Davies, for me, was just awesome to see. Sane, awesome to see get him that goal as well. And I'll definitely have a lot of thoughts on those two specifically and a lot of these contract situations. I think when Bayern is on this break, and we'll be talking about Chelsea games, reviewing those, we'll eat the other half of the pod with some talk about these Bayern deals, because they will be very important as we head into this potentially important transfer window in January, depending on how it shakes out for a lot of the teams around the league. But will be very interesting to see how things shake out the next 6 months. But ultimately for this game, Bayern just phenomenal to get a huge win heading into that break.
Agree. And I also wanted to shout out Leon Goretzka and Dayot Upamecano, because I just wanted to give it up to both of them, because, man, Goretzka did great in the midfield there and has done great filling in so far for injured players when he's been called upon. Upamecano, I just thought was far better than Kim in this game, and almost like Davies had to save his butt a couple times, Upa kind of did the same, in my opinion. But yeah, let's hand out some match awards here. You got anything written down?
Nothing written down. It's all in my brain. My brain is a steel trap and a phenomenal piece of organ that will be studied. This brain's an organ, right?
Sure.
I think it is. That could just be me saying that. But for me, Alphonso Davies was my man of the match. And the difference that he can make in a match as a left back is so key. It's such an X factor, because you don't often see left backs that can be so dynamic in a team's performance. And when he can set the tone right from the get-go in a match, that is so important for this Bayern team. We've seen when he's having an off day, it can really affect the team in a negative way, when he doesn't look like he's as motivated and ready to really make that tone the way he can. So he is so important, in my opinion, when Bayern are firing on all cylinders. So he gets the nod for me.
Yeah, I actually gave Davies the Robin of the match, so I agree with everything you said. I think he was almost as much as Kane so sorely missed against Mainz, and I think it was so noticeable when he was off the pitch. Bayern is just a different team without him, to be honest. I gave my man of the match to Joshua Kimmich. I mean, I gave him the moment of the match with that banger of a goal from deep outside the box, as we said. But just overall, I mean, what can I possibly say about him that I haven't said already? Totally controls the match. When he's having a good match, it seems like everybody's having a good match. Things flow through him. He dictates the pace of an entire match as one person. And, man, just really, really solid match from him. Once again, he had such a good hinrunde and just proved a lot of people wrong in my mind. And, we said we'll talk more about those contracts, but I am begging Kimmich, and not his agent, because he is his own agent, he does all the negotiations himself, to please think about your future with Bayern Munich. Become the captain of this team once Neuer retires and just lead us to glory.
Yeah, I don't see him going anywhere else. I'd be so shocked, and we'll talk about that later. But
Pep wants him.
in my mind, that's what I was going to say. He's not going anywhere unless he leaves Germany. He's not going to go to a different German team unless he wants to be an absolute scum loser of this earth. So, to me, my Robin was Musiala, setting the tone right inside that first 30 seconds with a goal. The things he can do for this team, I've talked about all year. You know, he's my favorite player to watch on the team, so I'm always going to be hyped to see him play well. I did think Kimmich had a great match as well, you know, whether you call him an underrated player or not. You know, he had that brilliant goal. And then I'd maybe shout out Upamecano. I thought had a pretty solid day defensively for the most part, you know, compared to Kim, who can be so iffy at times. And Peretz, you know, only allowing one goal. He's not great. I know you said you weren't going to give him a dig, but I will, because I just think Neuer is obviously missed, but Peretz, as I've mentioned, man, just does not inspire any confidence. I think it's a little worrisome. I don't think Neuer's out for an extended period, right? But
yeah, he says he's hoping to be back sometime in January.
Yeah, so it's probably not a huge worry, but you would just hope that Peretz could be a little better. I mean, SofaScore is not Bible, as I always say, but to only allow one goal and somehow get a 6.3 seems crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems is he panics a little bit. He'll blast balls way out of bounds that he doesn't have to. He'll make iffy passes. His decision-making, I think, is just a second too delayed sometimes, and that can really be the difference there. I'm hoping Sven can figure out his personal issues or whatever is going on with him. Don't want to speculate. I hope he can figure stuff out and be back with the team and hopefully get some match time in if Neuer misses any more matches here, because, you know, while he's not the best, he's just fine, and that's kind of all I'm looking for at this point. But yeah, I gave the underrated player of the match to the three-headed hydra that I'm coming up with right now of Musiala, Kane, and Sane. Kind of talked about all of them. Musiala, I'm looking right now on SofaScore, has an unbelievable score, 9.5. I honestly couldn't believe that when I saw it. I thought he had a little bit of a slower match. Obviously scored the goal right away, essentially all done by the defense, and then Olise, it was put on a platter for him. He got an assist in there too, I believe. I think he assisted Kimmich's goal, but that was just Kimmich bombing it from way, way outside the box. So it was a good match for Musiala. I don't want to say he had a bad match, but it just seemed a little bit more quiet to me. It seemed like Olise, Sane, and Kane were doing a lot, and obviously Musiala was as well. So I want to include him there as part of that underrated trio. Defender of the match, I'm giving to new father 3-lung Laimer for his goal and just overall contribution to this match. Yeah, the hustle that he has, he's everywhere at once, it seems. So great on him, and just overall an awesome way to close out the Hinrunde. Like I said, Leverkusen is a real threat. They're hot. I've been watching them. Their slow start to the season is now behind them. Their last couple Bundesliga matches, they've been really good.
Yeah, as I said, great for Bayern to go into that break on a joyous mood, because things can be pretty sour if you have a loss headed in there. So good on them, and hopefully they can keep it up once the break ends.
Yeah, so we kind of mentioned this, but we won't be taking a break, that's for sure. We'll be pumping out a lot of new stuff, a lot of cool, exciting things coming. But let's move over to Chelsea now and talk about these two matches. First up, against the team that just seems like a fake team to me, although they're doing good this season, I hear, Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, so Shamrock Rovers, a team out of the Irish League over there in Europe, and their league is actually over, so their season runs February through November, I believe. So they finished second. Apparently it was kind of a heartbreaking finish on the final match day for them. So they've just been playing all these Conference League games kind of for a while now. I think a lot of these teams in the Conference League had to qualify, like even many more games ahead of when Chelsea were just placed into it. So I think they have quite a few games under their belt in Europe, but Coming in, it's a match on a Thursday night at the Bridge, and Chelsea had been firing on all cylinders. A lot of people were thinking they'd go with a relatively young lineup. It was kind of a mix, and I think that was good because you saw a guy like Marc Cucurella, who was going to be suspended for the Everton match, get his minutes in this match. And we'll talk about some special things he did with those minutes. But then you still had guys like Guiu. You had Nkunku in his preferred 10 role. Madueke, because Neto probably would start against Everton, as he did. And then from there, just a mixed bag of some young guys, Aki Mpong, Tyreek George. So it was awesome for all those guys to get their minutes. And Chelsea really never were in doubt of winning this match.
Agreed. Overall, a solid showing from Chelsea. I think it helped to have a mixture of those veterans in the lineup. Nkunku, Cucurella, even Noni, KDH, Guiu. All these guys have seen significant playing time so far this year. But I also think it's important to just paint a little bit of a picture here. When you hear the words Shamrock Rovers and you think, what are their kits going to be? Their kits were exactly how I imagined them. Green and white, horizontal striped shirts with green pants and I think long green and maybe some patterned socks. But yeah, I just got to say, I mean, this team is a stereotype of what Ireland is.
Oh, completely they are. And you'd think they'd have more lucky clovers on their side. I mean, any young kid that they have working in this team, if they're not out in the fields every day trying to pick lucky clovers, four-leafed clovers, I'm not sure what they're doing, but Chelsea clearly showed that the luck was on their side. And, I'm not going to spend years talking about this match, but Marc Guiu is just a fun player to watch. That's really the way to describe it because he works harder than anybody I've seen on this Chelsea side all year. And he's actually starting to show that he has some technical ability as well. And I think for me, that's the key. And we'll see what happens in January. But if he stays, I wouldn't mind him getting more time because he showed in this match his worth.
Yeah, he definitely did. I think you can throw him in the Premier League as a joker in some of these matches. I don't know about this Everton match in particular, but just going forward into the second half of the season, you can, I think, throw him in the Premier League. Just see what you got. That is, if he stays around on Chelsea.
Marc Guiu gets a first-half hat-trick, and I think the catalog of goals that he had just shows what he can provide. The first goal, a mistake by the Rovers, but after the missed header of the defender trying to go back to the keeper, Guiu hustles in, always is in the perfect spot when he's pressing, and then heads it in, doesn't care about his body at all, and smokes the goalpost. I mean, the sound that came off of him hitting the post and the way his body just snapped back. And then he gets right up. I thought he was dead.
Yeah, I mean, my moment of the match was actually the moment that his head collided with the goalpost at warp speed. I mean, the fact that happened, he got up, I know he was hurting. So I think his head colliding with the post there after scoring that goal was enough to show it to Shamrock Rovers that what we're dealing with here is something that we just cannot come back from.
Yeah, he set the tone, and what's interesting is they immediately come back in the next 10 minutes or so with pretty much a lucky goal. They work hard to get a corner. They probably should have scored with a cross they had in, but off a corner, a shot's into the box and gets deflected by Castellet in. Nothing Jorgensen can do, but even being at 1-1 there, I was never nervous. You knew Chelsea were going to come right back. Guiu once again pounces on a mistake. This Chelsea press in the Conference League has just been undeniable, giving them goal after goal after goal. But here's where Guiu shows you that he's developed over the last few months. Remember that game against, I think it was Servette? He misses a wide-open chance off a press. This one, it was actually a tough angle with his off foot, and he slots it right in. So to me, that shows me that he's learning. He's showing his technical ability at only 18 years old. And then toward the end of the half, a beautiful header off a great cross from Noni. So he has the skills.
The way that Guiu, in particular, was pressing was perfect. I mean, he was able to intercept passes that were coming off from the keeper and coming off the defense right around the goal, and was able to put himself in perfect positions to score goals, and then, like you said, has matured enough to be able to finish these goals at this point, and it's a beautiful sight.
Yeah, and he almost added a fourth sometime in there as well, where he basically just steals it right from the keeper, and then was an impossible angle and hits the side of the net, but just the effort he puts in is unreal. And to blur the line of these two games here for Chelsea, including the one against Everton, I think that's why I would have potentially thrown him in against Everton, because on a day where Jackson's not doing a ton, maybe Guiu is a guy that you can just throw in, fire some crosses into, and he's still going to make the great runs that Jackson is known for. So we'll maybe get to that in a little bit here, but I just think he's been awesome to see. And that Chelsea press really provided the fourth goal in the first half as well. KDH gets one. They kind of steal it back in a vulnerable spot. Nkunku's coming close to score it, but ends up getting to Kieran Dewsbury Hall, and he slots it right in.
Yeah, an important goal for him as well, I think. I don't know what Chelsea's planning on with him, if they're planning on sending him on loan or if he's planning on leaving in January. I've heard a lot of rumors about these guys who are clearly talented players, clearly good enough to play somewhere in the Premier League, but, guys like KDH and even Guiu, who just aren't seeing a lot of minutes for Chelsea in the Premier League and maybe want to see Premier League minutes. I don't know, but either way, it was an important goal for him, either to raise his value on the open market or for Chelsea.
Yeah, I think Chelsea actually have a lot of super interesting options in this coming window that we'll have to talk about, because certainly I think a few guys need to leave, and one guy in particular that's out on loan probably should come back. So we'll get to that in the coming weeks here. But Chelsea do add a fifth goal in the second half to put a bow on this match, and it was their best piece of ball movement on the day between KDH and Nkunku. Ends up Nkunku slotting it into Cucurella, who dashes to his right a little bit, fires it in with his off right foot, right off the post and in. I mean, that was a winger goal. That's a goal where a left winger is coming on the inside, getting that pass, and hitting it with his strong right foot. But in actuality, this was a left back inverting and pushing up into that number 10 role that Maresca loves them doing, and he scores it that way. If he can continue to do just a little bit of this, that is crazy for this Chelsea team.
Yeah, I think his best attribute this year, Cucurella, has been his ability to invert and contribute to the offense in that left half space. I mean, and this goal was just a perfect example of it. It's not something that you can necessarily do against every team. It leaves you vulnerable on the defensive end for sure at times. But, I mean, in these Conference League matches, this is a perfect time for him to shine and to practice doing this. I think it's awesome by Maresca. Even in the Premier League, I saw a lot of moments, especially in the second half against Spurs, where Cucurella was inverted and was contributing in a beautiful way to that offense.
So Chelsea lock up the number one spot in the Conference League and will not play until March, and we'll find out, I think in February, who that opponent will be. But to blend right into today's match, this morning's match against Everton, if Cucurella is not suspended because of a red card, Chelsea win this match against Everton. And I strongly believe that. I think he is the huge difference maker that they've had most of this year. You could make an argument he's been their player of the season for various reasons, between him, Caicedo, and Palmer. But they go with a back four from left to right of Gusto, Colwill, Tosin, and Disasi. Not a huge surprise. Some would have liked to see Aki Pong, but I think he's just getting his feet wet here with the first team. So Gusto has played that left back spot, and he'll invert, but he's not Cucurella, and he never will be, just because of him not being strong with the left and not playing that side as much. And on a day where Chelsea had a terrible second half and a solid first half where they should have put some chances away, I just think Cucurella is that spark they could have really used.
Yeah, that's a bold claim, but the left side for Chelsea was hurting today. Sancho didn't have the best match. I didn't think he was okay, but just overall, the way that Everton played, it made it really hard to create chances. Everton clearly said, all right, look, we're not going to score a damn goal in this match. We're just going to play aggressive in terms of physically aggressive and scrappy and borderline, I don't know, shithouse, borderline, in my opinion, disgusting. We're not going to be aggressive in terms of offensively aggressive. We're going to be aggressive in terms of committing fouls and getting under Chelsea's skin, perhaps, if this strategy works. And that led for Chelsea not having very many offensive opportunities. You mentioned Jackson not having the best game. I mentioned Sancho maybe not having the best game. Palmer certainly didn't have the best game. Gusto certainly didn't have the best game. And yeah, Gusto on the left side, you're right, he's not going to be able to do what Cucurella does in terms of inverting. And Cucurella, I think, is the type of player who could, maybe get under some people's skin on Everton, and because Everton wasn't attacking, didn't really need to be playing defense very much, and could have used his offensive strength without the liability of worrying about defense.
Yeah, Everton is a poor man's Arsenal in the way that they play. Just defensive. They're tall. They score on set pieces. Dark arts, don't score a lot in open play. But to their credit, very good defensively. They have, I want to say, 7 clean sheets now on the year. And the fact that they're in, 15th or 16th place means that their offense is just putrid. They don't score goals at all. So I will credit them for that. They frustrated Chelsea clearly. They said they were going to take Palmer away. They did that. They were man-marking the hell out of him, multiple guys on him at all times. I think Palmer could have done more with the little space he had at times, but it is tough when you're just really being hounded like that. So then you leave it up to your wingers, and Sancho, for me, showed flashes, but he should have cooked Ashley Young all day and didn't do it enough. Credit to the ref for that, because that guy should have had a yellow so much earlier in the match. But Neto then, didn't do enough either, because he had a couple good crosses. But to me, that is where you're looking for the most opportunity when Palmer's being taken away. The wingers and Jackson, and those three didn't win Chelsea the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Neto showed flashes, like you said, and Sancho probably too. But Neto had a couple good bursts, I would call them, bursts of speed, quick runs, and then, I guess, because it wasn't always together, crosses that find their way in very good spots into the box, but nobody was there. And yeah, I mean, it was a frustrating match, and like you said, I think you described Everton very well. I don't watch a lot of them. I've said this a million times. I don't watch a ton of Premier League outside of Chelsea. I watch a lot of Bundesliga, but I do keep up with the scores, and I oftentimes see Everton putting up 0-0 or whatever, draws, or that they frustrate good teams is what I'm trying to get at. I've seen them many times pop up, and I'm like, how the hell is Everton in it with whoever? We'll see what happens going forward. I don't think this is a horrible result or match for Chelsea. Like you said, the ref I don't think was giving out cards early enough for Everton. Chelsea easily could have put away one of their chances, and then it's a whole different ball game. And not to mention, I mean, this isn't an excuse, but the weather was poor. It was rainy. It was super windy. It just didn't look like a good day to be out there playing ball.
Yeah, it's a tough match. The weather was apparently about the same as it was the day they canceled the match against Liverpool. No surprise, Chelsea don't get any advantages in this world. But I'm not even going to use that as an excuse, because it's a match where you have to put away the limited number of chances that you'll get. Jackson unfortunately didn't do that. He has the chance from Palmer where he shoots it right at Pickford, who makes an okay save. And then he has a header off a corner where it's a quick reaction, but he has the space to put that away, and he hits the post. So to me, it's just unfortunate. With strikers, you kind of expect a bit of a roller coaster. The best strikers in the world, Erling Haaland, has those days too. So, I'm not going to get on Jackson for it. It's just unfortunate that it happens in a match where you're not getting a lot of chances.
Yeah, and it's certainly about more than just what you're creating in terms of being a striker. It's also sometimes about how you're being serviced. And we mentioned it, Neto put in a few good crosses maybe. Sancho had a few good moments where he burned somebody. But overall, Jackson wasn't getting serviced, and the offense just wasn't doing very much in general. So, frustrating match. There was definitely that one that Jackson needed to put away, but you don't blame him for the draw. At least I don't.
Yeah, I certainly don't. I would blame the front four in general, and I would say the back seven really were overall strong. I would say in the midfield, Enzo and Caicedo played as well as they've been playing over the last few weeks. Caicedo over the last 2 years. Enzo, I think, was just really so strong. Even on a windy day, had a ton of long crosses that I thought were phenomenal. Being able to switch the ball from one side of the field to the other is huge for this team. Second half, I think the way Maresca just had them positioned kind of limited Enzo a little bit, so I'd put that on Maresca, who I don't think had a great day at all in terms of managing. But to get back to this back seven, I think the defense was solid. I think Disasi at times struggles in one-on-one, but Sanchez was able to bail him out with great keeping, and Tosin makes a great block, and Colwill, did enough to have a serviceable job as well. So credit to the defenders.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think that this was maybe the first or one of the first matches. For some reason, I am going back in my head to a Servette match that looked god-awful, but outside of that, outlier, and I guess maybe this one. This is one of the few matches I can think that Enzo Maresca probably got out-coached, or at least definitely didn't do enough, just didn't push the right buttons. I think for this kind of a match, he needed to go to his bench sooner, whether that be Nkunku, who I thought had an unbelievable match against Rovers, actually. I didn't really talk about him very much, but outside of Guiu, I think Nkunku might have been the best player in that match. And then you have all these guys who you can bring in to spice things up on the offense, and they just weren't utilized, and when they were, it was too late. But like you said about that back seven, awesome day by them. I thought Enzo, Caicedo, and then, Tosin. And I actually thought Disasi did really well, too. I thought those guys looked like the best players on the pitch, again, outside of my one special hero.
Yeah, and I didn't actually realize Everton ends up with a higher XG due to two major chances they had. They had 2 chances on 5 shots, Chelsea with 3 on 12 shots, but over 0.5 on Sanchez's great save when Jack Harrison just misses an all-time sitter. Let's be honest, it's an amazing save by Big Bob, but Harrison needs to put that away. And then the late block by Tosin, which is a huge XG chance as well. So for those two to bail out Chelsea, and feel free to get right into your Man of the Match award, as I just mentioned the save.
Yeah, so that was actually my moment of the match, was Sanchez making that save. It was not the best shot, so we can get that out of the way, but what Sanchez did there was incredible, in my opinion. He cut off the angle perfectly, but also didn't rush too far where he can get blown by. It's one you just have to watch, because he played, like I said, the angle perfectly, which is so hard to do in a one-on-one scenario, and then made the save, which was an incredible save, diving with his legs, saves the ball brilliantly. That's my moment of the match. And that's why, for me, Sanchez gets what is not going to be the Man of the Match award, but it's going to be the Superhero of the Match award, which for me combines man, Robin, defender, underrated, fireball, everything.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's a huge moment. So he's well deserving. He ends up as my Robin of the match. My man of the match was Enzo Fernandez. I just think this guy has had such a great run here of play, and he was the only one that was so consistent on the day. I think his service with a lot of these long balls and his play through the middle should have set up some goals for Chelsea, and the attackers just didn't do enough with that service. So for me, he was so solid. It's a shame it didn't result in any goals, but in terms of the rest, I think Caicedo is always underrated, and he shows why he is so important to this team. Tosin, I'd have to give defender of the match for that block and for some overall strong play. And to finish it off, I will bring back an award that I rarely use, but bad day at the office. And it's unfortunately a man that does have an office at the Bridge, I'm assuming, Enzo Maresca. He just didn't do enough in that second half to put his players in the right position to succeed. He needs to make subs sooner, in my opinion. You have all this outside talk about a bloated squad, and I'm not saying we need to let that talk get into his head, but you can use it. You can use a João Felix who, in a game like this, will be able to slice and dice through some great defending. You can throw in a Guiu or an Nkunku to replace Jackson, who's clearly not having his greatest day. You can throw a Noni in earlier because clearly the two wingers weren't doing enough in their one-on-ones in the box. I just think there's certain games where you need to make a move to signal to your players that we can still win this thing. We can push toward the end. And even though I didn't think Palmer had the greatest day, I understand why you're always playing him. You never know when he's going to turn things up, but sometimes you can make a move, and I'm not too worried at this point. If I'm saying it's Maresca's first really bad half of managing, that clearly means Chelsea are in a great spot. But if he wants to be in a title race, then he doesn't have a bad half there.
Yeah, I think that's all fair up until the title race implications there at the end. Because it's a tough day overall. It's like we said, it's rainy, it's windy. Everton is just clearly fouling left and right, sometimes getting carded, but most of the time not when they should have been getting carded. So it was a weird match, but I agree with you. I talked about the subs too. I think that Felix would have been a great move here just in terms of the creativity that he brings into the box and through a low block, whatever you want to call Everton's disgusting style of play today. He brings a way to, as you put it, slice and dice right through it.
Yeah, so we'll see because, Maresca always is talking about how Palmer and Felix are the type of players who have people buying tickets to matches. So if you're going to talk him up that much, I want to see you play him more. So that'll be what I'll watch going forward. Chelsea do head into a midweek Premier League match. I'm assuming back at home at the Bridge against Fulham. I'd have to verify that for sure, but I'm pretty positive it's at home. So that'll be a big one. Arsenal now a point behind Chelsea. Chelsea are essentially 7 points behind Liverpool, which really is just thousands of points because of how good that team is. But, I say that, a little tongue-in-cheek, but Chelsea just need to keep this momentum. A draw is not a loss. The unbeaten streak remains, but we need to keep pushing.
Yeah, Chelsea has everything to play for in the second half of this season. Liverpool is the best team in the world by a country mile right now, in my opinion. But look at how quickly things can change. City started the season great, and right now they've lost or drawn 5,000 matches in a row. Things can change very, very quickly, and Chelsea just needs to keep chugging along, and things are going to be looking good for them in the second half of this year. I guarantee it.
Yeah, so the next few weeks, we'll be talking about Chelsea's play, and then we'll be getting into a lot of the upcoming transfer window stuff for Bayern and Chelsea. So, definitely keep chugging along with us as this season gets into some colder weather, but still some exciting play.
Yeah, like I said earlier, we're not taking a winter pause. I want to do more of an in-depth review, potentially on the Bundesliga as a whole, and where I think things lie at this point. after the hinrunde, heading into the Rückrunde. Things are going to be interesting. There's a lot I want to talk about, like I said, so really just stay tuned. And there's going to be a ton of Chelsea content as well, as they're still playing matches. There's no break over in England. But if you made it this far into this episode, I just want to personally extend a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year message to you, because it means a lot. Thank you for listening overall. And we got a lot of exciting things coming forward for this next year, 2025, not just the intro song, if you can believe it.
Yeah, and just to tease a little bit of that, because I'd like to discuss it more in the next pod, but let's just say there's major exciting news for 2025, the summer of 2025. So a little teaser for you there, but hopefully we'll discuss that a little more extended in the next pod.
That's how I wanted to end things off for this one as well. But hey, if you want to take a trip to Cincinnati, I'll just put it that way. I might have an extra seat in my vehicle, so I'll send us off now with the ever classy, everlasting Mia San Mia.
Up the Chelsea.